A woman who has lost her husband knocks on her neighbor's door, not for help, but to sit in silence. He doesn't save her, doesn't heal her pain. He just stays close when everyone else expects her to hold on. What's born between them isn't love, but a space where they can be real. But the past always knocks on the door. And the main thing is not to slam it shut again. Don't forget to subscribe and like so you don't miss new stories. The light in the hallway was yellow, slightly dusty. There was nothing superfluous in this house. 3 cups, 2 blankets, 1 person. Ethan Hale sat at the table with a notebook in which he was writing down his expenses for October, although everything was already in tables. He simply loved paper, and the rhythm of the pen sliding along the lines. It was starting to rain outside, so fine, as if the air was slightly trembling. Autumn was never bright here, more like faded, but that was precisely where it was most. He heard a knock. Not a bell, but a knock. Quiet, hesitant, almost like a touch. He went to the door and opened it. Clara Morgan was standing on the porch, in a gray coat that didn't seem to have a single extra fold. Her hair was pulled back, her face was pale. In her hands was a cup, ceramic, with steam. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know where else to go." Ethan didn't answer right away. He just looked at her. And at the cup. "Come in." She stepped over the threshold as if afraid she would step on something important. He closed the door. He walked forward. "To the kitchen?" "Yes, thank you." They sat opposite each other. She put the cup in front of her. She didn't drink. She held her palms around her as if warming herself. You could hear the drops tapping on the windowsill. "It's just," she began, "today was especially empty. I woke up this morning and the house seemed not just quiet. It was like it didn't want me to get up. And then it was silent all day. Even the cat didn't come, although I never had one." "I understand," Ethan said. "You're lonely too, aren't you?" He looked at her, then out the window. "Sometimes, but I know how to be alone." "I don't know how. I've always been we, and now it's only I, and it's echoing. You can just sit here if you want. I want." She slumped her shoulders, as if she had been waiting for this exact phrase all day, maybe even all week. "I'm not asking to talk. I just want someone's breath nearby. Then we are coming." "Why?" "I don't ask for words either." They were silent. The tea had grown cold, but no one touched it. A car drove past the window, splashing softly through the puddles. Clara turned towards the sound. "It's funny. I used to hate rain, and now it's the most honest sound of the day. Because he doesn't demand it." "Exactly." He stood up and placed a blanket in front of her. "You can stay as long as you need. Just for a couple of minutes." "Certainly." She stayed until dark, then she got up. "Thank you. I didn't know that silence could be kind." "It's not silence. It's presence." She smiled, for the first time ever, quietly at the corner of her lips. "I'll leave the cup. Let it stand. It will be easier for me with her. Then, see you tomorrow? Whenever you want." Clara left. The coat slammed the air behind it, and Ethan didn't bother to wash the cup. He just poured himself some water and put it next to him. Now the kitchen breathed differently. Clara came back 2 days later. Unannounced, she had a pie in her hands wrapped in a cotton towel still warm. Ethan opened the door for her with the same reserved gentleness with which he held the cup with both hands, as if he were afraid that something might spill, crack, or disappear. "I baked it," she said simply. "I didn't want to eat it alone." "Then we'll eat together," he replied. The kitchen was almost dark, only the soft light from the lamp over the sink. Ethan had left the overhead light off. He felt it would be easier for her that way. She sat down at the table, set down the pan, cut the pie, and the smell of cinnamon filled the room. There was something homey about the scent, not from the past, but from something yet to come. "I don't like weekdays," said Clara. "Why?" "Because on weekends, everyone thinks you can be sad. And on weekdays, you have to hold on. And are you holding up?" "No. I wear a coat and smile at my neighbors. Does that count?" "Counts." She ate 2 small pieces and propped her cheek up with her palm. "And you? What do you do to avoid being lonely?" "I don't fight it. I just live in it." Sometimes I even notice that loneliness is not an enemy. It is order, without sound, without harshness. Only order does not warm. It is clean, but cold. He placed 2 mugs of herbal tea on the table. Have you warmed someone up? She looked down. I tried, but I don't remember the last time someone warmed me. Ethan didn't answer. He just moved the blanket that was lying on the back of the chair a little closer to her. Sometimes warmth isn't a hug. It's not being kicked out. Clara took the cup. She brought it to her face and suddenly asked, How old are you? 33. And you? 36. I feel like I'm 45, and sometimes like 16, when I listen to music in the car that no one else can hear, or when I eat cookies before bed. And I feel like a folder with documents. It seems reliable, but there is no smell. She laughed quietly, as if she didn't believe herself. You shouldn't joke like that. It's dangerous. Why? Because I can get used to you. He looked at her. He didn't smile. He just stayed. There was no answer in that look, only agreement. Get used to it, he said finally. I don't change too quickly. They fell silent. It was drizzling outside. The wind was moving the blinds. Everything in the house was in place. But something was already different. I don't know what it is, Clara whispered. I'm not asking you to name it. It's just, I feel better when I'm with you. Don't name it. Let it be just here. Here, she nodded. It suits me. Later she stood up, went to the window, and looked into the darkness. He wasn't bad. He just couldn't hear me when I was silent. And then I was silent more and more often, until it was too late. Sometimes late is not the end. It's just a new countdown. She turned around. Do you always say that? Only when someone stays longer than a cup of tea. I'll stay. He nodded. She threw on her coat, but did not hurry to the door. Will you allow me to come? Not on occasion? I don't wait for an opportunity. I just hold the door open. When she left, he didn't immediately clear away the dishes. He left them on the table. Let her know, here you don't have to rush to remove traces of your presence. Because in this house, there is no longer any fear of someone's breath. The house was filled with warm light. The lamps burned softly, as if they were afraid to disturb. Golden spots were reflected in the windows, and behind them, the cold evening was slowly settling. Ethan, as always, sat at the table, but this time not with a notebook, but with a carved wooden box in which his childhood letters from his father were kept. He had not opened it for many years. He simply held it. Sometimes that was enough. There was no bell, just a quiet knock and a slightly moved door. Clara entered without a word, as if she was returning to the house where she had lived since birth. She was wearing a knitted coat, dark, almost long. Her hair was loose. In her hands was a blanket. I thought I wouldn't come, she said, but then I realized that I was still here in spirit. Why divide yourself when you can just be? Come in. The silence is especially warm today. She sat down on the sofa. She unfolded the blanket and threw it over her shoulders. She placed the cup he had already poured in front of her. He knew what kind of tea she liked. Mint with lavender. You know, I almost forgot what trust smells like, she said. And it smells like this. Through a mug, through the absence of questions, through the fact that you simply remain silent next to me. Sometimes silence is louder than all the support. I was always afraid of this night, the first one. When you stay, not because you have to, but because you don't want to leave. When it's not the bedroom that's important, but the kitchen, not the words, but the look, not the step, but the pause between the steps. He sat down opposite her, moved the sugar bowl. She didn't touch it. I don't know what to do in these moments, she admitted quietly. Usually they expected something from me. I smiled, warmed up the soup, said, I'm fine. But inside, I stood as if in an empty hall, without windows. And now it's like, I'm at home, but not in a place, but in a state. It's strange. It's not strange. It's rare. They fell silent. Ethan picked up the book and flipped through the pages without reading. Clara watched him. Aren't you afraid that I'll take a step forward and then retreat? No, because I'm not standing on the border. I'm inside. If you leave, it will just be quieter, but not empty. You know how to be so calmly nearby. I'm not used to it. I don't want to be a storm. I want to be a window you can just look out of. She stood up, came closer, sat down next to him, not touching, just next to him. Her shoulder was a few centimeters closer than needed to feel warmth, but far enough to change his mind. Do you think of me as a woman? She asked suddenly. I think of you as a person in whose silence I am not afraid. That's the answer. This is true. Time passed. They did not look at the clock. She lowered her head onto his shoulder. He did not move. He only turned his palm upwards slightly, and she put her hand in it. I'll stay here on the couch, if you don't mind. Stay, as long as you want. This won't be the beginning. Marie, this is already the middle. He brought her a blanket, covered her, turned off the light, and went into the bedroom without closing the door. The morning was quiet, no fuss. She woke up first, sat up, stretched. He entered as if he felt her breath. Do you want breakfast? He asked. Only if together. He nodded. He sliced the bread. She got the butter. They were silent. But there was no longer silence between them. There was agreement and rhythm and breathing. When they sat down at the table, she suddenly said, it was the easiest morning in years. I'm glad you're in it. Me too. He poured her tea. She put the cup in front of her, and suddenly she reached out and touched his fingers. Don't go, okay? Anawam, I don't know how anymore. The phone rang as Clara was pouring water into the kettle. The morning was familiar, not rushed, but not lazy either. She felt here as in clothes she had worn for years. Not tight, not cold. Everything fit, even the pauses. She looked at the screen. Diane! And immediately something sank inside, like a thin chill down her spine. She didn't pick up the phone. Then she sat down at the table and without looking pressed answer. Clara, the voice was clear, controlled, like a woman who had spent her entire life speaking from a text. I don't mean to be intrusive, but it seemed to me that we haven't spoken in weeks. You're right, Clara answered calmly. I saw your photos in a coffee shop with a man. You're smiling. Clara didn't answer right away. She just squeezed her mug. Yes, I don't want to sound harsh, but Ben is still warm in the ground. And you. And I'm alive. This is not a reason for demonstrations. He was my son. And mine, my husband. And you don't know what it's like to live next to absence. Ben left a long time ago. He just remained physically. You are being unfair. Maybe. But I'm not going to be empty for the sake of appearances anymore. So you've chosen a replacement? This is not a replacement. This is a person next to whom I don't feel guilty for breathing. Pause, a long one. I won't call again, Diane said. I don't want to disturb you. That's right, Clara said quietly. The phone came loose, and the kitchen felt wrong somehow. Too loud, too smooth. She stood up and walked to the window. She looked out into the garden. Her fingers were shaking. A feeling was growing in her chest, as if everything she had built inside herself over the past weeks could crumble with one careless word. She didn't come that evening. Ethan waited. Not on purpose. He just left the door unlocked. He took out 2 cups. He put a blanket on the sofa. Habits that became a ritual. And when the clock hand crossed 9, he realized she wouldn't be here today. He didn't call. He didn't write. He just took away one of the cups, but he didn't take away the blanket. The next morning, Clara did come, without ringing the bell, without knocking, as always. But she walked differently, a little slower, her head a little lower. In her hands, there was nothing. Hello, she said. Hello. I couldn't right away. I was scared. I know. She said I move fast, and I just don't freeze for the first time. He placed a cup in front of her. No one is in a hurry here. Moi, but it doesn't hold. He holds, but not by the wrist, but by the silence. She sat down. She looked into the tea for a long time. Then she spoke, as if picking apart the words at the seams. When they tell me, be strong, I want to scream. I don't want to be strong. I want to be real. I want to show up and not explain. Just be, and know that they're waiting for me. I was waiting. I know. And I won't ask for more than you're willing to give. What if I can't give anything? Just be there. Sometimes be silent. Sometimes get confused. Then that's all I need. She closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. I'm afraid I'll ruin it. It is impossible to spoil what is built from truth. What if I break down? And then I'll stay until you come back. She reached out and took his hand, squeezed it, gently, without fuss. Thank you for not touching the pain, but just sitting next to it. It's better than trying to cut it out. I don't know what to call it, and there is no need. They sat like that for a long time, until the tea got cold, until the light began to slowly creep down the walls, until it became easy to just be silent again. And then she said, I'll come again tomorrow, if I'm not scared. Then I'll leave the door open again. Even if you get scared, they no longer mark the days. They didn't count the cups of tea or measure the number of nights spent together or apart. They just lived, sometimes next to each other, sometimes in different rooms, sometimes silently, sometimes laughing. It was strange how quickly you got used to it and how long it took. The morning was clear. Autumn had washed the sky, leaving it as clean as glass after rain. The kitchen smelled of pears. Clara stood by the stove wearing a soft gray sweater, barefoot. Her hair was pulled back casually, and around her neck was a thin chain, which she had always hidden under her collar. Ethan walked in slowly. He had a bundle in his hands, an old book and a cloth cover. He placed it on the table. Sweater, I found it in the garage. It looks like it belonged to my mother. There are recipes, letters, notes. The handwriting is alive. You know, when people write not for others but for themselves, the handwriting takes on character. Will you show me? He opened the book. Several pages were faded and stained. One was almost clean, with a single phrase. Life is not a cry for happiness. It is the ability to share silence with someone. Clara ran her finger along the line, as if it were about us. I thought about that too. She sat down opposite. She took a mug. They drank tea in complete silence. But this silence was not empty. It contained everything. Night conversations, evening silences. Those very I am here that do not need confirmation. You know, she said, I was walking past an old park yesterday, and suddenly I realized I don't think anymore that I need to hold on. I'm just walking, not after someone, not away from someone. I'm walking to my own place. And what did you find? This, here, in this kitchen, in this tea, in the way you wait, don't bother, don't call, in the way you don't ask, where are you, because you know I'm coming back. He placed his hand on her wrist, carefully. Because you are always here, even when you are not nearby. She fell silent, and then suddenly exhaled, I didn't tell you I love you, not because I don't feel it, but because that word seems to take my breath away. It was too often about pain, and I don't want you to become that. Then say it differently, he answered softly. I'm not afraid to be with you. He nodded, and he realized that this was even more than a confession. Later, she took an envelope from her bag. I wanted to leave this with you, for no reason. Can I open it? Whenever you want. He placed the envelope between the pages of the book, without hurrying. In the evening, they went to the park, where yellow leaves lay under their feet like notes. She took his hand. The palm was warm. He squeezed it, without further ado. I think I'm learning to be gentle, she said, and to be real. It turns out? Yes, because you are nearby. When they returned, the house was already dark. Clara stayed with him. In the bedroom, she fell asleep first. He looked at her for a long time. Then he got up, went out into the living room, opened the book, and unfolded the envelope. There was a note there. You didn't pull me out of the void. You just sat there. You didn't make me talk. You just listened. You didn't make big promises. You just were, and that was enough. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he realized he is not alone. He is part of something that is bigger than a house. He is the breath that someone has chosen, simply because it is easy to breathe next to him.